So, write good content, please. In addition to writing good content, there are some things that you can take advantage of as a third party, as an internal person. You have access to high production quality kinds of things, more so than, Joe the random blogger. So you can proofread and edit and ensure high production quality and produce information that looks nice, whether it's a book or online stuff. If you make your stuff look professional, people will assume that it is professional until sort of proven otherwise. And that's an advantage that internal corporate people have over the person doing it in their spare time. And of course, accurate, relevant information would be by far the most important thing to do. If the information is not accurate and not relevant, then nothing else you do is really going to matter. It is so tempting sometimes to try to whitewash problems in a product or to explain a workaround without using the word workaround, just to say, here's how you do X, Y, and Z, and suddenly there's this sort of 15-step procedure. I would really advise you not to, just to be candid, to try to be as straightforward as you can with your end users. You don't have to say this is a terrible feature and we hate it, but you do have to be, relatively candid about how things really work. So that means clear information, concise information, accurate information, and the spin belongs in the marketing documentation. If you're a marketing person, fine. If you're writing technical documentation, keep the spin out of it. That means none of this, oh, this is the greatest feature ever, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but let your end users judge for themselves. Just give them the good information. And I would look for opportunities where there has been information that hasn't been as clear as it perhaps should be, and try and shift your organization in that direction. See if you can get them to sort of lift that veil a little bit and be a little more straightforward. I think that will help with reputation. And reputation these days is, it's important, very important. So a couple of resources here. Oh, sorry, one other thing. Before you embark down this path and you say, okay, we're going to be the world's greatest user-generated content people, you need to think about your corporate culture. What is it like? Is it a startup that's, pretty out there and really doesn't have the resources to do a full-blown, complete documentation set, so we're going to do what we can and we're also going to have a wiki? Are you in a regulated industry? That's going to introduce a whole other set of issues. Is your company secretive or more open? Do they tend to announce things ahead of time? Do they tend to work with customers, or do they tend to sort of do a big announcement, then put stuff out, and having not really said anything before that? That also ties into regulatory questions. Large organizations that are, for example, publicly traded have some pretty strict requirements about what they can and cannot say and when they can and cannot say it. Organizations that use a lot of open source software tend to be a little bit more open in general to these kinds of approaches. If you have a command and control kind of organization, then I would be very, very careful about sticking your neck out too far within that organization. So really think about that and take a really hard look at what kind of an organization you're in before you go too far down this road. There is a whole set of impossibilities that are raised by user-generated content. There's some things you can't do anymore. Product defects are going to come out. People are going to find the problem and post a note on Twitter saying, has anybody else seen this? You really cannot control your product perception because, again, there will be other discussions going on out there. And your end user's perception, you may be able to shape it. You may be able to help them in a certain direction, but you're not going to be able to control it. You just do not own your product message anymore. If you want to position your product as, let's say, the high-end, really spiffy web design tool, and your end users think it's kind of a low-end web design tool that has a lot of missing pieces, and hey, this free thing over here is a lot better, your message is probably not going to win. So it's worth taking a really hard look at what your users are saying because they may not be wrong. And in reality, their perception is what matters. It's very difficult to shift them using PR or marketing or anything else. Withholding information. Again, trying to hide things, trying to make it look as though it works, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to work. It's going to come out, and you'll get dinged harder if you try to hide it than you will if you just put it out there. So something to think about. So the community has its priorities, and they may not be your priorities, and that's something to think about. The reputation issue is really critical. If you as an organization have a reputation for doing the right thing in general, then the community will give you some credit and maybe give you some leeway when stuff happens. And I want to point out that it used to be that information was scarce. Information was hard to come by. That is no longer the case. There's information everywhere. What's hard to come by is really good information, and so the thing that we have now that is scarce is expertise, really in-depth knowledge and understanding. Those are different from information. Information is essentially just data, and data is everywhere. But expertise is the thing that people care about and are willing to pay for. So a couple of resources here before, and I'll go into questions in just a few minutes. So wiki patterns I mentioned. I would definitely advise you to get Ann Gentle's book, Conversation and Community, The Social Web for Documentation. I gave you a link to United Breaks Guitars just for fun, and also a couple of the sites that we were on, Ravelry and Lionbrand, the Twitter site for search, and I would also advise you to really go take a look at the real-time search that has been put out. And there's it's not really a question, more of a statement coming in saying, Ann's book is great. So take that as an endorsement from somebody who is not me. And also not Ann, I'll point out for the record. Okay, a couple of things coming up. We do have another series of webcasts coming up, all about DITA in various kinds of products, so you might want to take a look at those. They are going to be free, and you can register for those through the events page. One other thing which is not on this page, we will be sending out an evaluation form after the webcast. I would appreciate it if you would fill that out. It's only 3 questions, and one of those is a radio button kind of thing, so it's a really, really small kind of survey. So if you could do that, that would be great. I'm going to put up my contact information. We are going to go ahead and cut off the recording, and then I would encourage you to go ahead